Fewladelphia is a city that is filled with waterfront neighbourhoods, from the beaches of Gaudy Bay through to Barill's Marina and Fishers Point's gentrified old industrial port to the abandoned piers of Tinney. The waterfronts represent the history and different settlements across the city. So how does our downtown waterfront fit? Well, the obvious thing is a space for tourists, but I imagine it wasn't always that. So today we're building a touristic waterfront on an old maritime setting and adding one of the most significant changes to the city's landscape yet. Let's dive in. Okay, so I have been looking at an absolute ton of different places to try and get inspiration for our waterfront. And I want to shout out Boats11, my wonderful YouTube member, who suggested I take a look at Seattle. And what a fabulous suggestion that was, because not only does Seattle have somewhat of a similarity to the location of Fewladelphia's downtown, being on a huge body of water here, there's also this big main road that runs right along the front of the waterfront, which is what we're going to do with our sunken highway coming up to the surface and running along the front. So yes, this isn't technically a highway. There's lots and lots of intersections, as you can see here. But really interestingly, when you go into street views, you can see it's very much a separated main road. So there's not pedestrians walking up alongside it. We've got a sort of side road up against the edge of the downtown where most of the buildings are. We've also got a dedicated split-off bike highway here. Love this. And then a really pedestrianised waterfront the other side of it. And lots of lovely kind of green medians and areas in the middle here which chop and change in between turning lanes, as you can see here, as it goes down the strip. So there is just so much inspiration I want to take from this, but particularly this big kind of main road. We're going to convert our highway into this arterial, and then also take note of the bike superhighway. I love how it sort of curves in and out here, and then of course the big pedestrianised waterfront along the edge here. But I also want to take note of these piers. This is very much the type of thing that I wanted to do here. It's kind of akin to what it looks like in Philadelphia as well. Lots of old industrial piers that have kind of maybe been converted into more leisure-orientated things now. So there's actually a playground over here, a big wheel, wings over Washington. You've already seen there's things like Starbucks. There's lots of little bars and restaurants that I can see along here. You can see lots of tables out this side. There's also some marinas like here, very small enclosed areas, but in general I just really like the idea of having these buildings built out onto our individual piers, and then it comes into more of a little park area that side. But if we come this way, we've also got quite a large ferry, maybe cruise terminal. I know there are some cruises that go from Seattle, so potentially could be that, or that might go from elsewhere. And then we've also got these big, well, we come onto a big port area here, but that's not going to be in our location. But things like a cruise terminal, definitely, I want that here. I want smaller ferry stops as well, or like you can see right here. This is very inspiring. I also love the fact that in between the piers, there's lots of sort of oddities, like there's this construction right in the middle here. We've also got this little section that sticks out, a ferry or kind of boat cruise terminal that's sticking out here. So it's yeah, very inspiring. I also love this, but the trouble is we have a huge difference between us and Seattle, where Seattle is actually going up quite a steep hill, and in Philadelphia we are essentially flat. So I might try and do something with this, probably not with the playground, but overpasses definitely coming over the road from buildings from the other side, with raised walkways perhaps around it. So I'll have a think about that. But yeah, a ton of inspiration that we're going to take from Seattle today. But just before we dive into that, a quick word from today's video sponsor, which is Instant Gaming. Instant Gaming is your one-stop shop for all discounted gaming needs. At the moment, they've got Silent Hill Townfall at a huge discount for pre-orders, and if the price drops before release, they'll refund you the difference. You can also pick up all of the Cities Skylines franchise DLCs, Planet Zoo, the entire Sims shebang, and so many more. And if you use my link in the description of this video, it also helps to support this channel, which is of course greatly appreciated. So go ahead, check out my link and bag yourself a gaming deal. Alright, so the first thing I want to do is sort out all of our road networks, because oh man, this is a mess right now. So we're going to bring up the sunken highway up to ground level, curve it around here and run it along the waterfront. And then I think what we might do at this point is actually raise it back up and send it around this hillside and on this direction, because I'm definitely thinking eventually we're going to have a bridge spanning across to this peninsula here. There is a ton of building area and loads of lovely coastline to do things with over there, so I definitely want to come onto that. And then I do also want to go ahead and make a connection up here, but there's one major thing I want to put in before we do that. And this is probably going to shock you all, because I always said I'm not going to bridge across this waterfront. But I've been debating it, and I actually really think it might be quite a nice feature. So yes, we are going to add ourselves in a Golden Gate Bridge. Just like that. And yeah, this is quite a nerve-wracking moment, not going to lie, but I think that's kind of cool. I definitely did not want to have bridges in this space here. I think this is just such a huge expanse of water and views and ships and things like that. I just didn't want to ruin all of the views. But having that in the background, behind the downtown, I think it's kind of special. Now it does mean that we do need to bring it back down and hook it in down this side. So let's just do a little bit of network work here. And we've actually got a fair few cars now using this exit, which is quite exciting. This is all a little bit rough and needs a bit of tidying up. I've done a bit of smoothing and a little bit of lane maths here and there, but it needs a bit of work. But essentially this highway now from this direction and going out in this direction is fully hooked into the downtown and into this collector road in either direction. I've then also added this extra bit of highway, which is going to snake around the coast and then probably bridge over here and also continue on round this way to add access around there. And then as far as the bridge is concerned, it just comes down into the road network. I might do something a little bit more fancy, a little bit Fisher's Point-esque, if you remember the end of the bridge in that district. Maybe something like that here, but again, we'll kind of decide that as and when we build around this area. But that's now hooked in. Now we need to just talk about the other end of the bridge. So this is essentially going to snake across this island this way and then bridge across, I think kind of bouncing off this island and then heading on into the back of Atkinson here. We've got a highway over here which I'd like to connect it in, because then any traffic coming from this outside connection heading into the downtown at the moment, they're going all the way up this road, hooking into the highway here, heading on through Burrill and then out to this highway to get in. So that is going to cut off a huge amount of distance coming across here. And again, hopefully further down the line when the city's even bigger, that'll ease quite a lot of traffic. And there we go. We've already got some people using our massive new bridges. Welcome. Welcome to the city. So yeah, I did go for a double Golden Gate bridge effect. I tried some other things and it just didn't look right, and I think this is a little bit more majestic, shall we say. Now this bit is a bit controversial. I'm not sure what we're going to do on this island. I had originally thought it would be kind of a massive nature reserve, but obviously there would have been some protests having a massive highway put right through the middle of a nature reserve, so I don't know, maybe someone's got some clever lore they can drop into the comments for this? Or maybe we do just build this island up. Let me know what you think. But then yes, double Golden Gate Bridge down here. So I have hooked in this back road from Atkinson into this system now. So yeah, actually someone's using it. So people could actually get direct from Atkinson, from the Dalgreens Vineyard and the Golf and Country Club over here, directly onto this access into the downtown. But I definitely think that should ease quite a lot of traffic, particularly as the city grows. I mean, in terms of traffic warnings, we have some stuff going on over here in Burrill. That's a crash. Aside from that, I don't think we have any traffic warnings at all. And even looking at this area in the downtown, this is a hell of a lot clearer now. And we do have quite a few people using this intersection here. So yeah, I think that's a massive infrastructure improvement and something that has like seriously changed the shape of the city at the end of the day. I mean, my goodness. We've got two ginormous bridges in that I genuinely didn't think I was going to put there. Anyway, we do still have a lot more networks and transit as well to sort out down the waterfront here, so let's now have a look at the sunken highway. So as we saw in the Seattle inspiration, we're essentially going to have this come up to ground level and run along the waterfront here. Now I want this road to kind of be where the waterfront is going to run, so we're going to need to reclaim a little bit more land here. So the main edge of the waterfront is going to be a pedestrian road, so let's just come down to here and we'll lay that out straight in like that. Now I'm going to go for a narrow one and not a key because I do actually want the fences for once. I mean, I was always begging to get rid of these fences, but now I do actually want them, I think, along the main waterfront. Looking at Seattle, there's definitely fences there, so I think public safety wise, especially because I'd imagine if this was a real city at least, there'd be quite a few people walking along this waterfront. We're definitely going to go for this. And also this means we've got car access down here, so we can get car access out to functional buildings around the place too. And then next to that, we're going to have our tram line because we do, if you remember from last time, have this tram route which tunnels underneath the front of the art gallery here and is going to come out into the waterfront. So this is going to run up alongside our pedestrian path here. So we're going to lay that out next. And then we're going to have our bike superhighway. So let's grab a two-way bicycle path. Now I am going to leave a little bit of room for this, particularly because if we're going to want tram stations in here too, we need to have a little bit of extra room so we can wind things around and that sort of thing. So let's put that in like that with a nice little gap there. And then we're going to want to come in with our big main road here. So I'm going to use a 6-lane road as a template like this. Now I do want to move it a little bit closer, but I will also want to change this up with Road Builder. So let's come into here and we're firstly going to remove all of the sidewalks. And then we're going to add in an empty lane into the middle, which we can't really see at the moment, but if we make it a little bit wider, 3 meters wide, there we go, we get almost sort of a sunken median. So we can put some surfaces on that, we can put some trees in there, we can change it up as well in places. So we'll do one version of this road which doesn't have that as well. And then let's grab a shoulder on either side because we kind of need those. And that gives us things like street lighting on here as well. So that's going to be the basis of it. And then next to this, we want to have a actual sort of functional street. So let's add in our suburban street, which is essentially an alleyway, so we don't have the road markings on here. I feel like it would be a little bit quieter on this side street at least. And then if we come into Road Builder, what we're going to do is use as a template, we're going to remove the sidewalk from this side. We're going to make sure that this side is no parking. And then we're going to add back in a parking lane to the other side with a shoulder because I think we just need to. Yeah, so we've got parking, which will be on the inside, and then a nice wide pavement, which will go up against any housing that we have the other side. Now, if we make that pavement a little bit wider as well, it gives us a full 2-unit street, so it should connect onto other roads just a little bit more nicely. And we just want to make sure that this street also has a small gap to our main big road there too. So we're going to have a really kind of wide waterfront area with lots of networks here. Now, this isn't going to be like this the entire way up and down. There are going to be changes, of course, where we feed this road into it, the highway into it, and then as we curve off in this direction, but also, especially, around what is going to be in this space, which is going to be a cruise terminal harbour, a big harbour. Now, I've just shifted all the bits up that we've just done there because I do want to get this harbour into place, and then we can hook in the sunken highway and continue on the networks this way. So let's do a tiny bit of a land reclamation. And this could all just be a little bit rough for the moment, but that'll do. Let's go in and grab our harbour. Now, I am just going to use the default vanilla harbour for this. I think it serves the purpose pretty well, and I don't really want to add a port. Plus, also, because we don't have a port, there's loads of shipping that we have to do before we unlock the passenger terminal of it. So that is not really an option for the time being. And actually, I do quite like this building. And particularly when we add on the extra here, I think that makes it quite a grand, nice building, definitely to have. And I think we will also have the transit terminal, bus and taxi. Yes, why not? We do need to go and kind of sort out the buses a little bit, which we will do later on. But I think that this gives us enough room. Oh well, yeah, it is hooked in. A little bit wobbly, but it gives us enough room to turn around underneath the bridge to come into this terminal here. So I think that's going to work. And now connections wise, I definitely want this road here to come down and then turn into the harbour essentially. So this is going to be quite a significant junction here, but I think that'll work pretty well. We'll come round and sort out this whole mess in just a second, but for the moment, let's give it a connection at least so it's got some power and water. And I mean, it'd be quite nice to see some ships, so we may as well go ahead and get in a passenger line. And speaking of which, I kind of feel like it'd be nice to have more than one sea connection here. Now we do have this way as a potential option, and I'm kind of thinking maybe we should use it. I know it's maybe not the most realistic to have sea traffic coming in and out of here, but I think it'd be quite nice to have the big boats going this way anyway. Maybe you could imagine it's a river cruise, or potentially it goes into some spectacular Vancouver style landscape further back, even though we can see the end of the water there, but never mind. I just think it would be nice to have some boats flowing in that direction. So we're going to do it. And that'll then mean that both of our terminals are kind of somewhat useful. And there we go, we've got a cruise ship coming in. Wonderful. And another one from over here. So hopefully that'll end up actually being quite busy. So yeah, at this point, our main road is going to start curving off. We'll join into this main road here, and I think we're going to come underneath the bridge and onto what is going to be a stadium over here. Yes, it will be happening. Probably not this episode. Definitely not this episode. Next episode. Promise. But anyway, for now, we want to get this hooked in and hooked into our sunken highway as well, and sort out these random networks that are a little bit at a loose end here. Now, I have something slightly funny to report. Well, it's not that funny. We have 0 passengers on any of our cruise ships. However, this one has 1,203 passengers, and it's just travelling from each of our outside connections. So clearly, tourists do not want to come to Fewladelphia right now. So I do want to start helping that a little bit by adding in some unique buildings here and things that would likely attract tourists, at least in the real world. So I'm going to start off with a grand hotel. Now, clearly we have a massive cruise terminal harbour here, so I think having a hotel near it would be quite fitting. And we can squeeze it into this space-ish, just about. We need to do a tiny bit of trimming, but that's not a problem at all. And I also massively want to change up the surfaces around the front there. I'm not a big fan of the bright yellow, I must admit. But I think we can get that in there quite nicely, and that's going to be a nice sort of old historic point to our waterfront, because the rest of our waterfront is really going to be quite modern. And we will add in more landmarks and tourist attractions. I do realise that the hotel is technically a landmark rather than a tourist attraction, so I think we need a few more of these buildings. But I do want to start talking about our piers here, because we need to flesh out this waterfront and bring them all out here, and also include things to join them up as well, like I mentioned. Now I am thinking, because we've got the Grand Hotel here, we've got this really rather marvellous fountain plaza, which usually gets put in the middle of a roundabout. I'm thinking we might just try and squeeze it on the edge of our coast. This is going to be maybe a bit of a challenge, but squeeze it over here. So yes, it's completely submerged in the water at the moment. If we pop it back up to this height here, and we'll just spin it around so the connection is kind of right in the middle of those two roads there. And then what we'll want to do is run a pathway around the edge of it to give ourselves some keys. Which is definitely not as easy as it seems. Yeah. And I'm sure I made that significantly more difficult than it actually needed to be. But we do have keys in now, circling it there. And then what we can do is bring a pier out next to it. So it's almost like one of those pieces that we saw in between it. And I think I would like to keep a little section of water here, because I did notice a few little spots like that in Seattle as well. So let's just grab this surface here and start drawing ourselves out a pier. And I do want to keep the ends of it like sort of diagonal almost, I think. Like we might have a few that look a bit different. We definitely want different lengths and that sort of thing to give a bit of variation here. But something like that's not too bad. Now in terms of what we're going to add to them, there's a few buildings specifically that I would really like to drop in that I feel are quite appropriate for a waterfront. So we do have the Deep Blue Oceanarium from the Leisure Venues Content Creator Pack, which I think would make quite a nice feature towards the back end of one of our piers here. Now we're going to use pedestrian roads to connect all of these in and connect onto our quay there, our main waterfront quay at that point. But we'll do that once we've figured out all the buildings and put them in place. Now the other one was the Maritime Museum from Bridges and Ports. So I'm just going to turn off snapping for a sec, because I think we might be able to fit this in here quite nicely too. And then we'll just have a little road in between them, so it'll run up the side there and then through in between the buildings. So that should kind of work. And then we'll wrap the whole thing in leisure piers and quays in a second, which is going to be another slight pain in the butt. So now let's look to bring out another pier over here, and it looks like we've actually found, which is quite handy, the map axes here, because that is a very straight line. So if we can kind of use that as a guide for where our piers are going to go, that'll be quite useful. So I'm going to make that one a little bit shorter than the other one. I mean, yes, there's a whole load of tidying up that needs to be done here. We'll make that one a little bit shorter. And I think because we've got a tram stop there, we'll probably bring the ferries out onto that pier. And then we'll have another pier here, which can just be kind of dedicated to probably waterfront commercial buildings, I think. And then in this section down here, where we have the other stop and also this road coming down, I think we're going to add a marina. So I'll kind of just outline how that's going to go. And then down this side, I would like to have some sort of disused, underused docks. So I'm thinking this is the part of the waterfront that's sort of been refreshed, refurbished and modernised. We'll have some big modern buildings in here too. We'll come on to that in a second. And then over this side, we could maybe have like a couple of sort of slightly more abandoned docks. I do also realise that we need a lot more fishing, but I just don't think this central downtown waterfront is really the place for that. So I think along here, we're probably going to do quite an extensive bit of fishing. We're going to integrate that ferry depot a lot better along there. And this will be more of a sort of industrial waterfront to support where we've got that kind of abandoned old industrial waterfront on Outer Tinney there. And then we'll come into a park. I think we're going to go into Boathouse Row that someone suggested from Fewladelphia along the sort of backside of the park here, which I think would be kind of fun. Have some massive waterfront mansions with their own personal docks. But that'll be for another time. But for now, yes, we've got a giant area to finish off here. So I think I'm going to go ahead and get in all of our key edges, our road access, a few more buildings in here, and also some surface parking outside the front of the harbour. I didn't really mention this, but yeah, we've got bike access direct to the harbour, we've got walking paths crossing the big main road, we've got a tram stop here. So I think a nice load of surface parking will probably be quite appropriate out the front there. Okay, so we have ourselves a few wharfs. I think I should call them wharfs, not piers. I don't know why I called them piers, but here we are. So I actually went with the Netherlands residential block down here because I found these assets and I just love them. I feel like it's got a brick vibe, which could have potentially been industry once, but all the balconies on the back, which face out to the water, just absolutely perfect for this. So the front is kind of a little bit stagnant, street level. Probably should put some street trees in here, really, shouldn't I? I will do that. And then the backs are where the magic happens, with all the balconies facing out into the water either side. Really, really like this. We've got people walking around some of the quays as well here, which I am pretty pleased with. I did also drop in a little underground parking area here. It's actually not getting that much usage though, so 56 at the moment. I've had it playing quite a long time, but I suppose that's because we've got street parking over here. But the other thing is, this car park, lovely and full. Now, I don't usually love a great deal of surface parking, but this is actually pretty satisfying to look at, so I'll take it. Now, next to the residential, we did just add in a little tennis court and a playground in here. I can't seem to get rid of the parking spaces on the tennis court, which is really annoying, but I'll kind of manage it for the time being. And then we come on to a more commercialised area. So we've got a little bit of waterfront commercial here. I was going to do more, but I actually realised they're all really quite low assets and I wanted something a little bit more bulky, only because we're going to really kind of crank up in height as we go back towards the downtown here, so it would sort of stand out a little bit like a sore thumb if they weren't at least a few stories tall. So I do like the fact we've got this rooftop seating area here. I've added in lots of tables and umbrellas and things like that on the outside. This merges into a mixed-use building at the end here, and then similar around this side, just shifted the tables out so they're right on the water's edge there, which I quite enjoy. And then for the ferry terminal, I actually used some of the Japanese high school sports halls for this, just a couple of them in back to back to give a little bit of a terminal area, so people have to walk through the building to get out to the ferry docks, which I am going to hook in a minute. We're going to do ferries and trams and get those going next. But kind of pleased with how that looks. And then if we keep on going, we've got a tram stop here, and then we come on to our sort of tourist pier, I suppose you could say, with the Maritime Museum and the Oceanarium. And then I did also add in a big wheel. Now I'm kind of disappointed I couldn't get the actual functional park here so we could get people walking around this area. I think what I will do is turn this into a park or walking area so that we could maybe see a bit more of an activity here. But I do love the fact we've got a big wheel on the end. I saw this in Seattle and I very much wanted to do it, so we could not fit in the actual park because it's massive. So we have just got static ploppable, although the animated one, so it is nicely moving. And it adds a nice little touch, I think, to the end of our touristy style pier here. I did also add in a lot of sort of food trucks and magazine stands and that sort of thing, and benches, of course, around there. We then have our big fountain, which is getting some people walking around, which is quite nice. There's a bit of horribleness in various places with the terrain and where the quays and the leisure piers are joining into each other, so it's a little bit rough around the edges, but we've got some patches in there. And then we come on to the ferry terminal. Now, I actually haven't done a lot to the ferry terminal itself. I just changed up some of the surfaces, added in some quays around the side, some rocks down this side, and then also this section here, which I kind of thought would maybe be a passenger loading area. And when I originally did it, I had it so they were coming out here, and then I realised that doesn't make any sense at all. So this is now the entrance in this side, and then you can imagine the cars drive into their correct numbered lanes for how they're going to board the ship, and then they drive out this side and can drive straight onto the ships down here. That was my thought process with it. But I thought it was kind of a fun little alternative to just stacking in a load more surface parking into this space. And then if we talk about the networks here, I did just do a little bit of surface work. We've got Gaga XM's amazing rock surface. I love this. Just looks so good. So good. So we've got that with some net lane lines around it, different foliage in each place, so it's a little bit more blocked off from the road going towards where the buildings will be out this side. It's a little bit more protected to the actual middle, which is a bit more sparse in terms of the foliage there. Then of course we've got foliage going out the other side onto the bike lanes. Now I did these nice little covers on them. I mean, I know it's not a super hot climate in Fewladelphia. We do have decorative palm trees, I may add here. But I thought it was kind of a nice little touch for the shade, and I saw similar-ish style structures from Street View in Seattle, so I was kind of, yeah, inclined to add some of these in, which I do think actually decorates up the bike path really nicely here. It feels very safe, and it'd be quite a nice ride really along the waterfront here. So kind of pleased with that. I did also change up this road, so we've got some dedicated turning lane sections here as well for some of the more major junctions. For example here, and also turning left from this direction into the cruise terminal there. And yeah, that was pretty much it. We've got a lot of people walking around, which is nice to see. Oh, I did also do some abandoned pier action over here. So we do have this one, and a little bit of greenery growing through, but just nothing else really to talk about on this one. Lots of decals, and that was about it. Then I did use the Forum of the Arts building over here, because this building actually adds 3% attractiveness citywide, so I was hoping maybe it would help bring in a few more tourists. Added a static ploppable version onto the other end, because I really like the sort of warehouse look of this. I think it fits quite well onto a dock area like this. And then we've just sort of fused in some of the keys around the edge here to give it a block to stand on, essentially. Now, okay, I was planning on doing loads more in this episode, but honestly, it's struck another heatwave here, and I started building it out, and I just can't quite get in the groove because I'm constantly sweating, just to give you that lovely picture. So we are going to finish off this episode by adding in the trams and the ferries, because I am yet to do that. So let's talk ferries first. So at the moment, we've just got one ferry line, which goes from New Haven onto Fisher's Point and out to Tinney. Now I think we should split this. So I'm thinking we have one from Few Haven, which goes to Fisher's Point and direct into the downtown. And then we probably keep that line the same. And then maybe another one from the downtown, which just heads along the coast up to Tinney. So it's almost like an alternative, maybe slightly quicker route out that way. So let's go ahead and do that. Now we're not using the pier on this side, are we? Yeah, so let's add in a new stop there. And then we can just join into the Fisher's Point pier and straight out onto the downtown. I think we'll come in this side. Maybe we actually add a waypoint there and get it to head in there. So we're using both of our berths. And then we can complete that there. And then we'll have one more line, which is going to go from the downtown straight out to the edge of Tinney and back. Now I kind of don't expect that to get too much usage. I think further down the line I'd really like to get some ferries out to potentially whatever we decide to put on this island, or maybe even out this way towards some further development in Atkinson. And indeed we've got this whole peninsula here which could use some ferry access too. There's definitely options for how we can change this up further down the line. But I think that's going to serve nicely for the moment. Like I said, I don't really expect that Tinney to the downtown line to get too much action, because they can just take a train in a much more quick fashion. Okay, so then if we come onto trams, we've got a pretty obvious route here. Now this line can extend further out this way, whatever we decide to do with it. But we'll terminate it at this transit terminal for the time being. And then what we'll do is we'll just bring it along this waterfront and stop at all of these individual stops here. So we have got one by the harbour, we've got one by the ferry terminal, we've got one by what will be the marina. That's another story. And then we'll stop it outside the art museum here. Hopefully that'll bring a few more people in this way too. And I think again this line is going to continue on in this direction, stop around the edge of our park here and go into a big tram terminal around that area. Now I'm going to use VTOC's amazing trams for this again because they're just really nice. And I don't know how much activity this will get. I think we'll go for a 270 capacity for now and we'll leave it at that. We've got 3 vehicles on the line. I think that's okay. It is showing no vehicles, so I'm wondering if we do have enough availability. So I'm going to have to keep my eye on that and see where we get to there. Maybe actually, thinking about it, yeah, this line is not connected into any tram terminal, so that'll be why. So I think for the moment, I'm going to go and randomly plonk in a refurbished tram depot here so that we can actually get some trams around our line. That should sort the problem because this has capacity for 12, so that's no problem at all. And that'll get trams onto this part of the line for the moment. So let's just skip forward some time and we'll see how all of this transit is doing. Alright, so some time has passed and I did promise that I would show the trams going through underneath the art museum steps here, so yeah, there we go. Woohoo! But yeah, there's hardly anyone using it. So if we take a little look at the line, as you can see, there's one person waiting here or there. There's a few people on the tram, so 6 on this one, 5 on this one, 1 on that one. So there's some usage, but there's not a huge amount. Our cruise ships are still leaving completely empty, and if we just take a little look at the ferries, so this is the Tinny line, yep, 0 passengers. Would you have 2 on that ferry? None on that one. And if we take a little look at the other line, we do have people using that, so actually 46, 17. So there's much more usage on the line that goes to Few Haven via Fisher's Point. And as you can see, we do have people waiting on the platform here too. So I think all of this will pick up once we start building out these front areas here. So that is going to come in the next episode along with the stadium, and then following that I will do the marina at the same time as I do Boathouse Row, and we'll have a big rich people episode, shall we say that? Now population wise we have gained a few thousand across the course of this episode, so I just want to have a quick check-in on unemployment, which is at 3.4%. Really pleased with that. And if we take a little look at tourism, I mean we're at a city attractiveness of 100. But 1,134 tourists per month. This is quite a touristic area in the downtown here, so yeah, I'm not really sure why our cruise ships are getting literally 0 passengers. I mean, let's just have a look at these ones. 0. Ah yes, that's just travelling between locations, of course. So yeah, if anyone has any ideas for how to get passengers onto our cruise ships, let me know in the comments below. But before we go today, I do just want to shout out Gaga XM, who won our latest community challenge over on the Discord server. And this challenge was all about the micro detailing, and they have created an absolutely awesome atmosphere with this sort of rundown industrial backyard. Amazing work. And if you'd like to be in with a shot of winning a game of your choice, head on over to Discord to take part in next month's community challenge, which is all about summertime. You can find more details on the Discord. And also a quick note, our Discord is almost at 1,000 members. So thank you so much for everyone who joins in the community over there. It really means a lot. But for today, that is going to be it. If you have enjoyed the episode, likes, comments and shares are really greatly appreciated. I want to shout out Thomas Campos, my Fewniverse mayor. Insane support. Thank you so much. And thank you to all of my wonderful Patreon and YouTube members. If you'd like to support the channel in return for things like early access and sneak peeks, there are ways to do that in the description of this video. But that is all from me for now. I'll see you again next time. Bye bye.